Hello and welcome to another episode of Boundless Body Radio. I'm your host, Casey Ruff, and today we have another excellent guest to introduce to you now. Fredrick Hahn is a personal trainer, author, and owner of Serious Strength Personal Training, a private personal training company with 2 locations on the East Coast. In his 30-plus year career, he has worked with CEOs, famous actors, writers, journalists, TV personalities, and even has the endorsement of none other than Tony Robbins. He has written 2 books, the first in 2003 with doctors Michael and Mary Eades, called The SlowBurn Fitness Revolution. In 2008, he wrote his second book, Strong Kids, Healthy Kids. He has appeared on several major networks and several major programs, too many to mention, and has lectured on exercise at Princeton, Mount Sinai, and many other famous institutions. Fredrick Hahn, welcome to Boundless Body Radio.
Thank you for having me on. Pleasure to be here.
It's an absolute pleasure to host you. I have a question for you and then immediately a follow-up question. The first question is, how old are you?
I am 59 years old.
Wow.
It's amazing when I say that. Yeah, where did the time go?
Well, that leads to the second question, which is, no, seriously, how old are you? You look like you're 30.
Well, flattery will get you everywhere.
Well, hopefully it's a good start anyway. I want to talk to you today about a bunch of fitness myths. You have been doing this for a very long time, and I want to just talk to you about your career and your work. I want to establish 2 things right off the bat. And the first thing is, let's say there's no science. I mean, I know you're a very scientific dude. You use science in your approach to fitness and nutrition. Let's throw the science away. Just let's forget it. I've asked some of my guests this in the past before. Forget the science. Let's just look at you. You are 60, almost 60 years old. You are thriving, super fit, kicking ass. And not only that, you're caring and kind, and you give a lot of your time and energy, and you're doing this podcast. Why would I not just say, like, look, I don't care about any of the science. Why wouldn't I just want to be like him when I'm 60?
Mm-hmm. How can I respond to that? Sort of like in a way, what I'll say to a lot of my clients is that it's tough to go by the results of other people because genetics play a very large role in the ultimate outcome. And I explain this to new clients all the time because they may sometimes have unrealistic goals. Like a man may want to have Arnold's biceps, or a woman might want to have like a 20-inch waist or something like that. And so I explain that, everybody can improve themselves, everybody. But the degree to which you can improve and make certain changes has a lot to do with genetics. So it often isn't fair to look at somebody with a really great physique and say, well, whatever it is they're doing must be working, because they may look like what they look like in spite of their training, not necessarily because of it. You know what I mean? I do not possess, I wish I did, it'd be nice, superior genetics like long muscle bellies and wide shoulders and narrow. Like I inherited, I'm actually very slender when it comes to my bone size. I don't have anything particularly superior in my genetics. It was just a combination of eating healthfully and strength training.
Well, I think that's really important to note that, regardless of genetics, you look amazing, and it's just because you've been following those principles, which we're going to get into, which is great. The second thing I want to say is you have done this for a long time. This is not like you were at the grocery store, last weekend and you saw a magazine cover that's talking all about this new keto diet that's just coming out. And, you decided to write this stuff. I'm sure if you could go back to 2003 when you wrote your first book, there's some things you may want to revise, but it's pretty remarkable that a lot of the stuff that you were saying decades ago holds up. And now a lot of people are talking about, but you were talking about it a long time ago.
Yeah, I was. And in fact, my co-authors, Mike and Mary Dan Eades, from the nutritional standpoint, they have been talking about this since 10 years prior to our collaboration. And so a lot of, how I think Isaac Newton said, if I have come up with anything new, it's because I have stood upon the shoulders of giants. Mm. And so Mike and Mary Dan Eades, from a nutritional standpoint, they're giants. They, especially both of them, are brilliant people. And one nice thing about Mike is that Mike Eades is really able to, he taught me a lot. He's able to read research and kind of, wade through the nonsense and extrapolate what the research is actually showing. Like, for example, on one study, we looked at mitochondria from strength training. Did mitochondria improve from strength training? And the conclusions of the authors was that mitochondria decreased. But what actually happened is mitochondrial density decreased. The total amount of mitochondria actually increased by 44% from the strength training. Wow. So Mike was able to sort of, sometimes the researchers themselves are not really clear about what they're seeing. But in any event, yes, Mike and Mary Dan Eades and I have been talking about the benefit of low carbohydrate, low sugar eating in combination with strength training since 2001.
Wow. I got to meet Michael Eades actually in March of 2020. It was actually the weekend the world blew up at Low Carb Denver. And boy, his talk was amazing. One of my favorites. And then he steps off stage and he'll just like talk to you. He's just such a nice guy and he's so smart. But he's also another great example of somebody that's so kind. He's thriving and kicking ass where a lot of people his age would not be. So I think that's really important. I want to get to know you and your practice a little bit more, but before we do that, I want to talk about a few fitness, I would call them myths, things that basically everybody in the fitness world kind of knows and accepts. It's everything that I see in my personal training certifications. I'm sitting next to several books of certifications, nutrition coaching certifications, things that if you ask most trainers, they're going to answer in this certain way. But I've found in my career that a lot of those things don't necessarily actually work. And as a trainer, we're paid to get people results. We're not paid, to get people eating one way or another or doing a certain way of exercise that we think is great. It's all about results. And so I want to kind of go down a list of a bunch of different things. And I want you to comment, yes, no, how do you think of these things? And the first one is a big one that everybody knows, which is in order to get healthy, you have to count the calories that you consume, and you also have to track somehow the calories that you burn.
Yeah. Well, my first response to people who say things like that is when they say, "Oh, you got to count your calories." I say, "Okay, which ones? Count what calories? Which ones are you talking about?" A calorie is just a measure of how to heat 1 gram of water 1 degree Celsius. So I'm counting that. That's what I'm counting. So when I go to I'll say, so if I need gas for my car and I pull into the gas station and the attendant says, "What would you like?" Would it be okay if I said fuel? Right? Is that what it should be okay from the calorie as a calorie standpoint? I should be able to pull into the gas station and go, "I would like some fuel, please." And the attendant should know exactly what I'm talking about, right? But he won't. He'll look at me like I have 4 heads. And if all the fuel was the same, why would high test cost more than less? Why would the 97 cost more than the 87 or the 93 octane above it? Why does it cost more? There's a reason why it costs more. And so people who say a calorie is a calorie, you got to count calories. They're going off of even the people who have degrees in the subject and are knowledgeable. They're invoking the first law of thermodynamics without invoking the second law of thermodynamics, which states that machines, I'm going to screw this up, but actually Dr. Richard Feynman and Dr. Eugene Fine wrote a very good paper on this. You can Google it and find it. It's called "A Calorie is Not a Calorie." But basically, machines are inefficient and lose energy whenever you put coal into a into a furnace, right? It matters the kind of coal you put in. Like when you burn logs in a fire, oak burns much denser than, say, other woods like locust. Locust wood burns, the same size log burns much faster than an oak log. So when somebody says catch calories, you have to say, okay, which ones? Should I decrease the amount of protein I'm eating? And that person might say, oh, well, no. So, but you just said I have to lower my calories. So it shouldn't matter which ones. So what do you really mean to say? And
yeah.
So that's kind of, you got to get specific.
That's a really good point. I like that. I like the analogy of the different fuels and how they burn differently. If you throw tumbleweed on a fire, it's going to respond a lot differently than that oak, like you mentioned. Let's go to another myth, which is cardiovascular exercise is necessary to be healthy.
Well, it is. That's the way you said it is interesting. The answer is no, but yes. In other words, most people don't, when they say cardiovascular health, their little mind bubble sees a heart and lungs. Their little mind bubble doesn't see mitochondria. So when at an initial consultation, I'll say, okay, listen, let's say you're out of shape. Let's say you decide I'm going to do something about this, and you go and you briskly walk 3 blocks and you're completely out of breath. And you're like, wow, I got to do something about this. So you go and you join an aerobics class or a spinning class, whatever it is you decide to do. And now 3 months later, you can briskly walk 3 miles and you're not out of breath, right? So before you couldn't go 3 blocks and now you can go 3 miles, right? What got better? What changed? So like, for example, when you're strength training, if you start out and you can do 50 pounds on the chest press, a year later, you can do 150 pounds on the chest press for the same amount of repetitions. How come? Why? What got better? Well, it's obvious, right? You built more muscle fiber. You have more muscle. So therefore, you are stronger. Okay, so you couldn't go 3 blocks. Now you can go 3 miles. What got better? You improved the total amount of mitochondria within the muscles. Your heart, you didn't grow another heart. Your heart didn't double in size. Your lung, you didn't grow a 3rd lung. Your lungs didn't double in size. So when we say cardiovascular health, often we don't mean what we say because we're thinking about the wrong things. So when you improve it, like if I took my magic wand of mitochondria and I tapped you on the shoulder and gave you 10,000% more mitochondria than you have now, you'd smoke Lance Armstrong in the Tour de France.
That's right.
With the same heart and lungs you have in your body now. So cardiovascular health is important, but it has more to do with mitochondria and how which are little organelles that they're little energy furnaces that produce energy. And aerobic exercise produces more mitochondria, but so does strength training if you do it right.
Great point.
So
that's a great point. I'm going to give a shout out to one of my favorite bands. It's called the Reverend Peyton's Big Damn Band. Really great band from down south. And I believe it was 2012 was the first time I watched them. And Rev Peyton was this big dude, had a lot of excess fat at the time. And I saw him then, and then I saw him a year later, and he had leaned out, like crazy leaned out. He had all kinds of muscle mass, big barrel chest, lean waist. And so after the show, I asked him, like, dude, what have you done? You lost a ton of weight and you lost a ton of fat and maintained muscle mass. Like, you look great. And he told me that he was using the treadmill. And I said, oh, that's really super interesting. He was like, yeah, I use the treadmill. I don't turn the damn thing on anymore. I use it as a dip station. I was like, that's great. That's a great use for a treadmill.
That is funny.
I thought it was pretty good. Okay, so...
Yeah, I guess that would work pretty good.
Yeah, exactly. He did that, and then he cut out bread and sugar. Like, that's great.
That's something I really want to say is that for anyone listening, diet, meaning the food you eat, nutrition, is 100% responsible for either losing or gaining fat. Exercise has you might, and maybe this is a question you were going to ask me, but I just wanted to make sure that was said, because that's such an important, Mike Eades and I, we've been saying this for forever and ever and ever, but exercise has very little to do with fat loss.
Yep.
Very little.
Agreed. And on that note, that's a good segue. What most personal trainers are taught is that you cannot lose fat and gain muscle at the same time. Yet I found that if I train people a certain way, they could absolutely lose fat and gain muscle if they trained a certain way. Can you comment on that as well?
Yeah. Well, first of all, you're right. And it's nonsense. Of course you can. And the reason why the typical personal trainer, the typical well-meaning personal trainer, I mean, look, they get their certification and they think that they're doing the right thing, right? And it's a shame. They follow the rules of eating less calories. So the truth is, no, you cannot lose fat and gain muscle at the same time if you're decreasing the total amount of calories you eat, because what's going to happen invariably is you're going to lower the amount of protein. So, and there is no way in heaven or heck that you're going to build muscle if you're not eating adequate protein. It's never going to happen.
I agree.
And so that's why the trainers will say, well, look, I've never seen it happen. It's because you're following the wrong rules.
Yeah, that's a great point. Okay, so going back to lifting weights, we're establishing you need the protein, you need to challenge yourself somehow with weightlifting. But to be able to do that, to challenge yourself with weight training, you need to spend several hours a week in the gym. You're going to walk around to a bunch of different machines. You're going to do 3 sets to 10, and you need to spend several hours in the gym. True or false?
Yeah, that is false. And it's false because just like the calories in, calories out misunderstanding, the misunderstanding here is that the benefits of exercise, I'm saying this is the misunderstanding, that the benefits of exercise come when you're exercising. That's the misunderstanding. So the more you exercise, right, the more I'm in the gym. Hey, I'll lift weights twice a day because I got nothing better to do, so I'll get twice as big. No, the benefits of exercise come, and I just did a live Instagram, a short little video on this. The benefits of exercise come when you're not exercising. In other words, when you're resting and recovering from the exercise. That's when you're getting, it's like a suntan. Let's say you want to get, you're white, you want to get a suntan. You go out in the sun, you're out there for an hour, and you get out of the sun because you feel your skin is hot, and you look in the mirror. Are you tan? No, you're red. You're not tan. Your body, it takes time for the body to convert the radiation that it took in into melanin so that you get a tan. And too much sun, you get burnt. You don't get anything. Too little, like a winter sun, it's not intense enough. The intensity of the sun is not enough to give you a tan. And that has a lot to do with resistance training or weightlifting too. If the intensity isn't enough, then you can be in the gym for 5 hours. You're not going to build muscle. But it's the rest and recovery period in between the training sessions. That is when the process of what I call positive tissue adaptation occurs.
I've heard you talk about muscle failure, and you also call it muscle success. Tell me what that signal needs to look like, because again, the most workouts I see people do, they'll lift 3 sets to 10, and they might challenge themselves a little bit, but it doesn't. They're pretty easily accomplishing what they need to accomplish to get that 3rd set and 10th rep. It fits in where their strength already is. So explain what kind of signal we need to send to achieve muscle success, as you call it.
So when I say success, what I'm talking about is successfully recruiting as many muscle fibers as possible in that set. There's a principle in exercise physiology called Henneman's size principle. And Henneman's size principle states that muscle fibers are recruited in order of their size. It doesn't matter whether you lift the weight fast or lift the weight slow. The fibers are recruited in order of their size. The smallest, or what they call the slow twitch, are recruited first, then the intermediate, and then the fast, which is really like the type to X fibers. So when you perform a repetition, let's say you're going to do a set of 10 repetitions. The first few repetitions, you are about whether you lift it fast or slow, because slow twitch and fast twitch fibers do not refer to the speed with which they contract. Slow and fast, and a lot of exercise physiologists misunderstand this. Slow and fast refer to the fatigue characteristics of the fibers. So slow twitch, fatigue slowly; the fast twitch, fatigue quickly. But they're recruited in order. Sorry, you were going to say something?
Well, I was just going to say, you've already put a lot of emphasis on that, and I think you're absolutely right. Not a lot of people appreciate this, and me included, until very recently, a few years ago. Will you say that one more time? Like, fast twitch muscle fibers can be trained at a slow tempo. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes, absolutely. The speed with which, the tempo with which you lift and lower the weight has nothing to do with the characteristic of the fiber. Slow twitch refers, they're oxidative fibers. They have endurance. They're slow to fatigue. Fast twitch fibers are more glycolytic. They are non-oxidative, and they are very quick to fatigue. That's what slow and fast twitch refer to. So like if you kick a soccer ball as hard as you can real fast, you're not using any fast twitch muscle fibers. Now pretend that soccer ball was a medicine ball, a 50-pound medicine ball. Pretend. Pretend you couldn't get injured, because you'd get really injured if you tried this.
Yeah, that would hurt my toe.
Yeah. And now you kick the soccer ball, but it's a 50-pound medicine ball. And with all your might, you're pushing it, and you manage to lift it in the air about 6 inches, and then it drops. Now you're using all of the muscle fibers, slow, intermediate, and fast, because the effort is so hard. But the ball is moving really slow. So when you lift weights, you have to get to the point where the last repetition is virtually impossible, so that the fast twitch muscle fibers are engaged. So if you can do 10 reps of a bench press and you only do 5, you have not engaged any of the fast twitch muscle fibers, because you could do 5 more. So the effort to do 5 reps, when you know God comes down from heaven and she says, you can do 10 reps with 200 pounds, and she goes back to heaven, and then you only do 5. And you do 5 sets of 5. You will never get to the fast twitch muscle fibers unless you attempt the 11th one.
Yeah, it's so important.
So Henneman's size principle states clearly that fibers are recruited in order of their size. So you have to train to deep muscle fatigue to successfully, that's why we call it muscle success, to successfully recruit the fibers. That's why Dr. James Fisher has done a lot of research. Stuart Phillips at McMaster University. There's a lot of research on this now. Basically, in a nutshell, training to failure, what I call success, is really the key to improving muscular strength and muscle mass. And that's what, and all you have to do is one set. One set, you've recruited it. It's like walking into a room with a light switch. You turn the light switch on and the light goes on. If you hit the light switch again, it's not going to get brighter. The lights are on. So when you reach muscle failure, the lights are on. You don't have to do it again. There's no point. Save that energy for another exercise or muscle group. So again, it's called Henneman's size principle, and we don't get to vote.
Yeah, no,
it is the way it is.
That's so awesome. That's really well said, and I'm so glad you emphasized that. It basically means, like, if you want to go bro out at the gym and spend a few hours there and train like a bodybuilder and give high fives to all your buddies and, you know, whatever you do, like, okay, if that's the way you want to spend your time. But I found in my career that I really thought that I liked to work out. I don't like to work out. I hate working out. It hurts. It sucks. What I like is riding my bike or going on a walk or like paddleboarding. Those are fun.
That's right. That's right. And, you know, bodybuilders have found effective and inefficient ways to build muscle. Whereas high intensity training, or what I call slow burn, is a highly effective and highly efficient, time efficient way to exercise. So yeah, if you want to live in the gym, if you want to make your gym your bar, you're going to have to figure out ways to work out that will allow you to last for an hour, 2 or 3, 5 or 6 days a week. So, and now on your 5th set, you might reach failure when you could have done it on the first one. But if you're training efficiently, you'll be in and out of the gym in less than a half an hour, and you only need to do it twice a week.
That's great. That's great. One good way to stretch out your time in the gym would be to take really long recoveries while you play on Instagram on the machine that everybody's waiting on. I don't miss that at all. Now, you mentioned slow, and a lot of people, I don't think, give a lot of importance to how quickly or how slowly the tempo of a lift is. So you wrote a book, SlowBurn Revolution. Tell us about why the tempo in a lift matters and why you have to do it slowly.
Well, there is good research to show that, and if you read, it's in Brunstrom's clinical kinesiology textbook, and I hear I'm getting all scientific now, but basically, first of all, as a personal trainer, what's the most important thing that you take into account with your clients? Safety. Is there anything more important than the client's safety? No. And if you don't agree with that, you should not be a personal trainer.
Agreed.
Go do something else, you know? So starting from there, if I follow basic exercise physiology principles and I use 60 to 70% of your 1 repetition maximum for a bench press. So let's say, not that we ever test your 1 repetition maximum, but this is just for argument's sake. So I give you 70, you can do 100 pounds once. So I give you 70 pounds, right? Now, should I tell you to take that 70 pounds and lift it as fast as you remember, we're talking about safety. Should I tell you to lift the 70 pounds as explosively and as fast as you possibly can? Or do you think I should tell you to lift that 70 pounds as slowly and as carefully as you can? If you were training someone's mother, what would you tell them?
Oh, absolutely. You'd have to move slow, of course.
So, right. So if you're listening and you're a personal trainer and you chose the former, so you're telling me that you would prefer to injure your client by producing more force with the same weight. Why in the world would you do that? So that alone, the safety factor alone, dictates that you must train with a slow repetition tempo. Like I don't even have to go any further. There's also very good evidence to suggest that a slow eccentric, that's the lowering for those of you, I know you know, but the eccentric for people who are listening, the lowering portion of the weight, it's also called the negative. There's good research to show that that is an important part of the exercise muscle building stimulus, because the muscle fibers it's like Velcro. They're sort of raking across one another. And I forget the page number, page 185 or something, in the recent issue of Brunstrom's clinical kinesiology textbook states very clearly that with a slow repetition tempo, more quality cross bridges are created. So when if you lower a weight quickly, there's almost no eccentric. You're just dropping it. So the muscles are not experiencing any load at all. So the slower you lower the negative, the higher the quality of the eccentric contraction. And it's safer. So it's just a matter of thinking logically. And there's also, not something I really wish like young kids were taught, critical thinking. Logical thinking. That's something that should really start from when they're like in grade school. In any event, so the safety factor is number 1. Number 2, let's say you're dealing with people with injuries and they have a bad knee, or they have a little crick in their neck, or they have chronic lower back pain, right? By training with a slow repetition tempo, you have the ability to take into account the areas where that person may be feeling discomfort. If you train quickly, too late, you have no chance to find out in what range of motion would be best for that particular client. So they may lift the weight halfway up and go, this is starting to hurt. So then to limit the range of motion, and then maybe over time you can increase it. But if you're just telling people to explode, and I debated Dr. Brad Schoenfeld in England a bunch of years ago. In his book, he recommends explosive lifting and controlled eccentric. But what does that mean? What does that even mean? It's like fuel. So from the standpoint of making sure that your client, I guess that's a part of safety too. So safety and effectiveness would be the real reason why you would want to train with a slow repetition tempo. So I teach my clients to take 1 to 2 seconds for the very first inch of movement. This way, they're basically producing the least amount of momentum possible when they lift. And then when they reverse, to lower as slowly as they possibly can, depending upon the length of the exercise. So a calf raise may take 5 seconds. A pullover shoulder extension exercise might take 12 seconds. Just depends on the length of the stroke length of the exercise. But essentially it's 1 or 2 seconds, and I use a metronome at a beat per second to move the very first inch, and then I instruct the client not to move any faster than about an inch per second after that, smoothly. And whatever that tempo winds up being, usually it's in the neighborhood of 7 seconds, 6, 7, 8 seconds to lift the weight, 6, 7, 8 seconds to lower the weight in my experience. And then you take that to the point of momentary muscular success. I hope that was clear. Was that clear?
Yes, very clear. It seems so. It's not easy, but it's simple. It's not overly complicated. Program design doesn't have to be this crazy thing with all these sets and reps. It's just you need to turn on the light switch, like you said, and let the body do what it's perfectly capable of doing, and then recover. It's just so simple. Right. Really, really simple.
And a lot of trainers will say, "Oh, well, Fred, you don't have to go that slow." It's like, okay, well, how fast do you want to go? Why not go as slowly as possible? Yeah. Like, why argue it? Why, if a bunch of research came out that showed that lifting a weight in 2 seconds and lowering a weight in 2 seconds or 1 second was 20% better at building muscle, I'd still go slow. Because most of my clients are moms and dads and grandmas and grandpas and aunts and uncles. I'm not going to injure them. Sorry, no way. But the research actually shows that the benefits of slow repetition training are equal to, and there is some research to show that it's superior to training with what people call a normal tempo. I don't know what normal really means.
Yeah, right. That's a really great point. Another raging debate seems really interesting in the fitness world, where there's this whole thing with functional movements versus like a standard strength movement. Functional movements, right? Yeah, I've given this example. I've given this example in the past on this show before. Like if you play basketball a few years ago, if you would have come to see me, I would say, great, you play basketball. So let's do movements that look like basketball in the gym. And we'll use a medicine ball and you'll hop around and, jump and twist. And maybe you'll jump off a box, but none of that is actually basketball. So why would I waste a bunch of time on the weight floor trying to train for something that they're not even ever going to do in the same context?
That's right. And there is I could really go on and on about that one, but essentially it has a lot to do with the misunderstanding of the difference between the function of a muscle, whether or not the muscles you're using are functional in that exercise. So for example, I had once a physical therapist, I was teaching a client really slow leg extensions. And the physical therapist said, well, when does anybody ever extend their knee like that in real life? And I answered, well, first of all, how about kicking a soccer ball? But anyway, let's say you're right. The quadriceps extend the knee. That's what I'm doing. I'm making the quadriceps stronger. And if I make a muscle stronger, it functions better. I don't have to mimic a sports skill, because that is not going to be the best way to strengthen a muscle's function, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
You make every muscle in your body stronger, and then they'll function better at anything you do. And the question then becomes, what is the best way to make, for example, the quadriceps stronger? Well, the quadriceps extend the knee and flex the hip. So do that. And the stronger you get at doing that, the harder you'll kick the soccer ball. When I have instructors, new instructors, or clients who are like, I don't really understand what you're saying, like, I'll say, okay. And then I read from them a short clip from the textbook that I learned when I was studying exercise physiology at Long Island University. It's a book called Motor Learning and Performance: From Principles to Practice by Richard Schmidt, who's, technically one of the gurus of motor learning, motor performance. And in the textbook, it states, a common misconception is that fundamental abilities can be trained through various drills or other activities. The thinking is that with some stronger ability, the athlete will see gains in performance for tasks with this underlying ability. For example, athletes are often given various quickening exercises with the hope that these exercises would train some fundamental ability to be quick, allowing quicker responses in their particular sports. Coaches often use various balancing drills to increase general balancing ability, eye movement exercise to improve vision, and many others. Such attempts to train fundamental abilities may sound good, but usually they do not work. Time and often money would be better spent practicing the eventual goal skill. In other words, if you want to be good at basketball, go play basketball. If you want to be good at tennis, go play tennis. But tennis isn't going to make you better at basketball, and basketball isn't going to make you better at tennis. So, in other words, he says there's no general ability to be quick or to be balanced or to use vision. Quickness, balance, and vision are based on diverse abilities, but there's no single quickness or balance ability that can be trained. So you just have to make every single muscle in your body stronger, and then go practice the sport that you love exactly as you would play it. And that combination is the very best thing you can do.
I love that. I completely agree with that. My understanding of that has definitely evolved and changed over a long course of time. And one thing for the listener to keep in mind, like, we're talking about muscle, building muscle, which is so critical. We cannot state enough how important it is to build muscle. One thing we haven't even talked about is all the other things that strength training accomplishes, like bone density or, better connective tissue. Like, there's so many other benefits we haven't even scratched the surface on, let alone the muscle mass that you need to do those activities and do them well in the context of the skill that you want to go perform.
Right. Strength training improves cardiovascular health, as we mentioned, through the increase in mitochondria. It increases bone density. It actually raises your HDL. There's good research on that. It improves blood pressure, enhances joint flexibility, increases muscle endurance, decreases low back pain, neck pain, arthritis. It controls your blood sugar because you have more muscle fibers. You have more cells to put the sugar in.
Yep.
It increases your lean tissue. It accelerates your metabolic rate. It decreases abdominal fat. It actually also improves mood, cognitive function. It's just, it is by far and away the single most potent form of exercise anybody can engage in. And I tell people, look, I'm not saying don't do your aerobics or whatever it is you enjoy, but strength training must be part of your life. And if it is, anything you love to do, yoga, Pilates, running, it doesn't matter what it is, anything is going to get better.
I love that. I completely agree with that statement. That's wonderful. Yeah. You mentioned carbohydrates. Another thing that most people think they know is that you absolutely need carbohydrates to build muscle. Do you need carbohydrates in your diet to build muscle?
No, you don't need any carbohydrates at all. In fact, protein is what builds muscle. Carbohydrates don't build muscle. Carbohydrates are used for energy. The analogy I give clients is Think of fat and protein. Let's say you want to build a house. You want to, and you have to hire workers. Fat and protein are like the expert. They're like the plumbers and the carpenters are coming in to build and fix things. Whereas carbohydrates is like the lazy teenager lying on the couch. It's just waiting around to do something, but it doesn't actually do anything unless it's used for energy. So when bodybuilders use carbohydrates, they use it to put more or less water in the muscle, because that's how intramuscular glycogen, sugar, carbohydrate, get in and out of the muscle through a water molecule. So it's sort of like when you dehydrate steak to have jerky. It's the same amount of protein in the jerky, it's just there's no water. So water gets in and out of intramuscular sugars get in and out of the muscle through a molecule of water. So carbohydrates don't build muscle. And if you eat adequate protein, through a process called gluconeogenesis, any amount of blood sugar that is necessary is produced from the conversion of the protein you eat to sugar. So you can absolutely build muscle and strength without eating any carbohydrate at all. Now, if you do eat some, what'll happen is and I think Dr. Volek and Finney and some of the other experts in the field have tested and measured on a zero carbohydrate ketogenic diet. Your body will decrease the total amount of water within the muscle, intramuscular water, glycogen, up to about 60%. And then it halts. And then it shifts to fat burning. And, that's ketogenesis. And so you start using fat as the main source of fuel rather than glycogen. But it spares a certain amount of glycogen within the muscle at about 50, 60% or so. I think I'm getting that right. And now, all of a sudden you say, the heck with it, I'm going to eat a pizza. Now, of course, where's all that blood sugar? Where's all that sugar going to go? The first thing it's going to do is get shoved into your muscle cells. And that's why, like, if you've been low carbohydrate for a while and then you eat carbohydrate, all of a sudden you get swollen. Like you can feel your muscles just swelling up because all of the blood sugar is being put into the muscle cells. And once the muscle cells are full, then it's going to go in, then it's going to convert to a lipid and be put into the fat cells. But you do not need any carbohydrate whatsoever to build strength and muscle mass.
Thank you.
Nope, sorry.
Thank you. Yeah. Totally agree. It's interesting on the note of gluconeogenesis. A lot of people think of gluconeogenesis as a swear word, right? Like your body, when it doesn't have the carbohydrates it needs, it has to make them through protein. And people think protein, so then they think muscle. And those two are different things. And if your body is using fat and ketones as fuel, you don't even need a lot of gluconeogenesis anyway. And
that's right.
And you learned the benefit of fasting. And so I really want to talk to you about like what you learned when you started fasting, because this is very counterintuitive for a lot of people. And this took me a long time to really get a good understanding of. I was using a metabolic cart for years, measuring people's metabolic rates. And I would tell them, you have to eat X amount of calories or your metabolism is going to tank. And I started noticing this thing where people would try low carb diets or they would try fasting and their metabolic rate would be through the roof and they would be happy and healthy and they're not that hungry and they feel great. And they're looking at me saying like, I can't eat that many calories unless you want me to eat Twinkies. What do you want me to do? Like, how did you come to the understanding of how beneficial fasting was, what autophagy is, and how that helps with gluconeogenesis?
Well, I'm going to give almost all the credit to Dr. Jason Fung and the work that he has done and his colleagues and the book that he wrote on, it's his first book on fasting. If I walk into the other room and go get it, I could, but it's his first book on fasting. And I started to read the research on it. And what really struck me as I was getting older was that the research that I was reading and what Dr. Fung talked about was that first of all, true fasting is very different from starving. When you're fasting, you are not starving. The processes are very different. And when you fast for a long enough period of time, and I think Dr. Fung and the other experts, minimum 16 hours, more towards the 18-hour mark, you're actually increasing growth hormone. And I thought to myself as an aging guy, whoa, I'm never going to take exogenous growth hormone. But if I could find a way to somehow manipulate my diet to increase my growth hormone, then maybe I'd be able to build a little bit more muscle than I have now. So I decided to do an experiment. And so, and the autophagy part is, so when you're really not eating anything and you are fasting properly, autophagy is the process where your body cleans up its junk proteins. It sort of like sweeps up, it gobbles up the damaged junky proteins and actually seeks out the carbs inside the fat cell. So it's like it goes around like Sherlock Holmes, seeking out all of that stuff and using that as a source of protein. That's why you don't lose muscle tissue, because your body, when you're fasting, because of the process of autophagy. I decided to do an experiment because I had the InBody 570 machines that I had just purchased, and I wanted to see, and it measures your total body water, and I'd be able to see if the benefits of fasting would actually occur. And I doubled down on it and went to a MRI imaging facility where I got my body composition tested with a DEXA. So that is like the gold standard, basically, where it's radiation. But these days, it's very, very, it's no more radiation than flying in an airplane somewhere. And it measured my bone mass, fat mass, and muscle mass. So I did the DEXA scan, and then I measured myself on the my InBody device, and it was pretty close to being identical within just a couple of points. Then for the next 3 months, I fasted 18 to 20 hours every day, black coffee, water, not a calorie went in my mouth for minimally 16, mostly 18 hours. And then I had 2 meals a day, and I met my protein requirements of about 150 grams of protein. I did that for 3 months. I went back and got tested on the DEXA, and I tested myself on the InBody machine. No differences in my weightlifting. Exact same slow burn routine, increasing the weights where I needed to, but no different. And I had lost, I have the data right here. I lost, my body fat percent went from 18.1% to 9.4%. My total fat mass was 30.4, and it went to 14.8. Now here's the cool part. My lean mass was 131, and it went to 136. Even my bone mass increased. My percent of lean tissue went from 77% to 86.3. And I had lost, my body weight went from 168.5 to 158.5. So I had lost 10 pounds of body fat and gained 6 pounds of lean mass by fasting for 18 to 20 hours a day, meeting my protein requirements when I ate at the age of like 56.
Wow.
So that was like, well, there you go. Something had to have happened.
How many people, how many trainers would tell you that is not possible? You can't do that.
Right. They would say it's impossible. That's baloney. And I'm like, well, you read the data. And the physician so when you get the test, you sit down with the doctor afterwards and he says, okay, this is what your results mean. The same doctor did my before and after. And when he saw the after, he's looking at it, and he just looks at me and he goes, what are you doing? I said, well, and I explained it to him. He goes, first of all, at your age, you have the lowest amount of visceral fat and fat mass. Only one other person I've ever come in contact with was in better shape than you, and it was a 22-year-old triathlete. And he was barely in better shape than you. What kind of exercise? I mean, I lift weights 20 minutes twice a week. He's like, no. I'm like, yeah, that's what kind of aerobics? I'm like, none. He said, what? I said, none, zero, none. I sit on my 56-year-old butt and I do nothing. And then I explained to him the ketogenic low carb approach to eating while fasting for a minimum of 16, more like 18 to 20 hours a day. And he was just mind blown.
I was going to say his head exploded, I'm sure.
Yeah, he thought I was lying, but I wasn't. And I wasn't counting a calorie. I didn't pay any attention to calories. Wow. In fact, actually, that's not true. A couple of times I did because I was curious, and I was eating more total calories because I was eating lots of steak and fat and lamb, and I was eating more total calories in the 2 meals I was eating while fasting than I was eating when I was eating 3 meals a day.
Wow.
Not a lot more, but a little more.
Wow. That's awesome.
So if it works for me, it'll work for anybody. And I've had some success with, so the clients that have done it have experienced similar successes. I mean, I was very strict. I was really good, It's hard for some people to be as good as I was, but it works.
Well, I'm so glad you mentioned the InBody. We've used the InBody 570 as well, and I really love that you mentioned fat mass, because that is a metric that I don't think a lot of people really dial into. I had to make a special spreadsheet that just did some simple math to show people fat mass, because they could see their weight and they could see their muscle mass, and they would see the percentage of body fat that they had, but that doesn't tell you fat mass. Fat mass is how much fat is actually absolute and on your body. And I was doing the same thing. We would do weight loss contests that would go for 2 months. We would just basically tell people, like, eat low carb, here's some meal plans. We'll discuss the science and stuff as we go. Just eat as much of these foods as you possibly can and lift weights. And, we tracked it, and we tracked it many times. And at the end, we had over 100 people, men, women, some wanted to lose weight, some wanted to gain weight. Some were old, some were young, some played sports, some didn't do anything. And across the board, we could get people to lose 100%, nearly 100% of their weight in fat by approaching weight loss this way. Where if we did what we were classically taught, where you count your calories, you eat less, you move more, you will lose weight for sure, but you're going to stall. You're going to lose a lot of different things, not just fat. You're going to lose bone density and muscle mass also, and you will rebound. You will gain all the weight back. It's crazy.
That's right. That's absolutely what you just said is 100% correct.
So let's go back to the fasting. To how everybody knows that fasting is super, super difficult. You must have been absolutely miserable when you were between meals. Is that the case or not?
No. And that's the thing with clients. They're amazed at how easy it becomes. The first day or two, they gotta get their affairs in order. So that's really the difficult part. It's like, oh, I'm not eating now. Oh, they're used to eating at breakfast, and they got a little pleasure out of it. So, it's, they had to sort of adjust to the change in the habit, the lifestyle habits. It's like when you move to a new apartment, it's sort of like, oh, what is this? But then you find your way. And so many clients, especially some of the women who like to snack a lot, said, wow, Fred, I'm not hungry. I don't even think about food. I don't even think about it. It's like, it's 2:00 in the afternoon, and I'm like, oh, I'm supposed to eat now. Oh, well, okay, I guess I'll eat now. But that whole hangry thing doesn't exist anymore. And it doesn't take very long, 2-3 days, and
gone.
And that's it.
Gone.
And then it has a lot to do with the satiety of protein.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love that. I'm on 20 hours right now of not eating, and my stomach, I feel a little hungry, but that's it. And you're right. Like I used to, between clients, if I didn't get my yogurt snack or protein bar or whey protein shake, I couldn't remember things. I wasn't in a good mood, right? Hangry. And I think if some people could just experience what a day could feel like on this lifestyle, how awesome it is to just go do stuff. Like if you're on a vacation, you don't need to spend a bunch of time in a restaurant if you don't want to. You can go see stuff. You can exercise. You can go on walks. Like it's easy. Oh, it's amazing. The mental clarity, like there's so many benefits. I just want to kind of sum some of this stuff up. So sure. With the exercise, we should be lifting weights. We should challenge the body preferably to failure,
Yep.
move slowly so that we recruit all the muscle fibers. And then with the diet.
No. Moving slowly is just for the safety aspect. Recruiting all of the muscle fibers has to do with training to momentary muscular failure or success. That's what's going to recruit all the muscle fibers. Training slowly is going to do that safely.
Perfect.
And there's some evidence to suggest a little bit better, especially because you're making the eccentric slow.
Perfect. Thank you for clarifying. That's perfect. So lifting weights, challenging the body, do it a few times, get the signal, then get out of the gym if that's not where you want to spend a lot of time. And then with the diet, keep the carbohydrates basically as low as you can tolerate. Try some form of fasting, skip a few meals here or there, focus on the protein, get some fat to be satiated with the protein. And I mean, is that about it?
Yeah. And the thing about the fasting, if people want to try it, is they really should. And I'm actually currently, although it's taking me quite a while because of COVID and just other stuff that's been going on, I'm actually in the process of writing a third book, which is going to be a combination of fasting and strength training. But the thing to remember, I got to get my act together and finish it. The idea is to understand that fasting, if you have a half an apple, you've blown it.
Yep.
If you put milk in your coffee, you've blown it. You're not fasting. Now you're starving. Your body is going to go, oh, we're eating now. And the metabolic processes will alter. It will change. The body will not be in a fasted mode. You will not experience the autophagy. So when you fast, you have to know what you're doing. You have to fast, actually fast.
Yep. Fasting is fasting.
Yeah.
This is so awesome. This is such great information. I really think it can help a lot of people, and I hope a lot of people find this information because, again, you don't know how great life can be without experiencing this and doing it this different way. And it's so much more. It doesn't have to be easy, but it's simple. It's not reinventing the wheel. It's challenging the body, like you said, keeping the carbohydrates low, focusing on protein, and that's about it. And you can live a very healthy and enjoyable life. And again, be almost turning 60 and kicking ass the way you are. It's awesome. You mentioned COVID. How did 2020 affect your business and affect your studios?
Well, it was tough. It still is. I would say business went down by about 2/3.
Wow.
And so I did have to let some instructors go. Yes, it was very difficult. And I'm hoping, but I'm here. I'm alive. We're still going. I've had this facility in New York for 23 years and my one in Montclair for 6 years. And now with the vaccine being dispersed, I think we should start to see people's confidence come back and start to feel less afraid to venture out. I think that's probably what will happen.
Great.
So,
and it seems like those smaller studios are just set up more for success anyway, right? Like it's not like there's many people in there. You're working one-on-one with people, which is a great way to keep people safe. And I agree. I think the people that are writing this out and finding ways to be creative in a really difficult time will only find themselves set up better when life, evolves into something that's a little bit more what we think of as normal. So I'm sure you're going to have a lot of great business and a lot of people coming to you, and you'll be able to retain a lot of the people that you have over time. And I think it'll just make you more resilient. This has been such an awesome conversation. I'm gonna put you on the spot and say that we didn't tackle a whole bunch of stuff that I wanted to tackle, including your second book about healthy, strong kids. Some more of your content we didn't get to. I'm going to put you on the spot and see if maybe I can invite you back to be on another time to talk about some of those other things.
Yeah, I would absolutely love to. And I'm actually going to be setting up, just so people know, I think it's pronounced Calendly, right? Calen, calendly.com/slowburn. And I'm going to be setting up an availability to, if people are interested in speaking with me on either a 15-minute or a 30-minute basis. I'm trying to figure out how this works, but it's going to be calendly.com/slowburn. And if anybody's interested in, chatting about it, but I'd be happy to come back on the show anytime. This has been great fun. And I'd love to.
You're an awesome guest. You've shared a lot of information. Your website is great. We'll link to all of that stuff in the show notes. Again, all of this stuff is pretty simple. There's a lot of different levers that we can pull to change somebody's health and their fitness. If you had to leave a listener with one thing, there's one simple thing that they could focus on, what would that one thing be?
I would say nutrition, eating healthfully, meaning a low sugar, low carbohydrate, adequate protein for your size, diet or nutrition plan, whatever you want to call it. I would say that is the single most important thing anybody can focus on. Exercise is great. Strength training is the exercise you could focus on. But no amount of slow burn, fast burn, no amount of strength training is going to do you any good if your diet is poor. So it's very important from a health standpoint, from a fat loss standpoint, from a muscle building standpoint, that you get your kitchen and you get your nutrition in order.
Love it. We couldn't agree more. Where can people go to find your work?
Well, my website it is a start, and that is www.slowburnpersonaltraining.com. I also am now doing a lot of stuff on Instagram, and the Instagram page is SlowBurn Personal Training on Instagram. I've been doing what I call a series of Fred Talks, strength worth spreading, and I'm going to be doing a few more of those. They're like short 5-minute videos, and I think those for a lot of people, I think people have commented that they're very helpful. So looking at those on Instagram. I haven't posted them on the website yet. So those two things are the very best way to learn if you're interested in learning what I've learned and contacting me.
That's great. Like I said, we'll link to all of that in the show notes so people can find you and your great work. Fredrick Hahn, this has been an absolute honor and pleasure to talk to you. So grateful for your work and your longevity. And more than anything, I'm personally very grateful for the example that you're setting to myself and our clients that you can thrive by just changing your lifestyle. And you not only teach that, but you prove that and you show that. So thank you very much for your content and your work. And thank you so much for taking some time to appear with us today. Okay. Well, I appreciate you asking me. Thank you so much. I'm Absolutely. Grateful. We'll be looking forward to hosting you again sometime soon. Okay. Awesome. And this has been another episode of Boundless Body Radio. As always, thank you so very much for listening to Boundless Body Radio. It's really inspiring and amazing to see some of the reviews that we have been getting, and also to receive so many messages and emails about how these episodes have improved our listeners' lives. And so thank you so very much. We are so happy to bring these episodes to you and provide them for free, and we really hope that they help you in your life. We have just passed 2 major milestones, which is absolutely mind-blowing to me. And basically, we did both of these in pretty much the exact same day. We have just passed 100,000 downloads worldwide of Boundless Body Radio, and we have just launched our 250th episode, which is absolutely amazing. Like I said, I never imagined we could reach that many people. We always want to keep you updated on things that we're doing on our website. So if you go to myboundlessbody.com, you can always see what we're up to. This month, we have a link that you can go and schedule a functional movement screen, which we do virtually over Zoom. A functional movement screen is a series of 7 different movements and 3 different clearing tests, which is designed to find weak links dynamics in the body, such as muscle imbalances and joint stability issues. It's a really great tool for discovering inefficient movement, and even if you're not experiencing pain in certain areas of your body, it's something that can prevent injury later on. Some muscles need to be stretched, some need to be strengthened, and we can help you create a plan around that so that you can stay healthy and continue to move well for the rest of your life. So again, you can go and schedule that at myboundlessbody.com. You will also see the other services that we offer. You can always schedule a complimentary 30-minute consultation with us to really chat about anything that you like. And remember, if you are enjoying Boundless Body Radio, please take a minute, give us a rating or review on Apple. It really helps get this passion project out to other people. And thank you again for tuning into Boundless Body Radio.